Alright, ladies and gentlemen, what's poppin' and oppin'? Hope you guys are having a great day. Chances are, if you are relying on the stock market to pay your bills, though, you're not having a very good day. Because today the market just seemed to fall off a cliff, and yesterday wasn't that much better either, so I figured we should talk about it. Let's go. I'm getting quiet now. Laying low when you reach zone, piping down, making out, stack the... Alright, so like I said, the past couple days have been especially rocky, and usually going into the weekend, the market takes a little bit of an upswing to put everyone in a great mood, right? Today, though, because of Russia, Ukraine, and a bunch of stuff going on, just didn't work out that way. Dow falls about 200 points Friday, heading for second straight losing week on Russia-Ukraine tensions. Alright, so I made a video a week ago talking about Ukraine-Russia tensions. It seems like everything has just kind of gotten worse, and then better, and then worse than it was before. I think now they're starting to say that, like, rebel groups on both sides are starting to start shelling each other, which, you know, obviously is just going to escalate things. And obviously the unknown is things that investors hate the most. It's like hard to be confident in your investment long term if you don't know what's going to happen in the next like 6 months that could potentially change the course of everything. Obviously, anytime like a potential war is on the horizon, people are going to freak out a bit, so it's not surprising that stocks are dropping down. That being said, you know, obviously I don't want there to be a war between Ukraine and Russia, but I'm not understanding just exactly why they're selling off as much as they are, though. I'm no financial expert, you know, there's a reason I'm not a billionaire. That being said, it's like, even if Russia does invade Ukraine, I don't really know what that change is for the United States on the scan of like the next 10 years. I know a lot of people aren't invested super long term, but like, you know, even if this does happen, obviously that throws a huge wrench into this year, probably the next 2 or 3 years, but if you're investing for a super long time horizon, it seems weird to sell now. U.S. stock indexes fell Friday and headed for a second consecutive losing week as the Russia-Ukraine conflict loomed. The blue chip Dow Jones Industrial Average shed 210 points, and the S&P added 0.7, and the Nasdaq retreated 1.1. Friday was particularly volatile, with trillions of dollars in options and futures on stocks, indexes, and ETFs set to expire. Option expiration days, which occur on the third Friday of the month, can cause the market to swing in a wide range. Stocks have struggled this week as investors continue to be on edge about ongoing tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Alright, obviously the second consecutive losing week is not great, but that being said, stocks don't always go up, you know. I'm not sure if people were too familiar with this. It seems like the last 2 years that's all they've done. That being said, I still see a lot of people being like, the crash is going to be bigger soon and bigger soon. There's a lot of stocks that have been just dropping like hotcakes. A lot of stocks already down 50% from all-time highs. Obviously, I think, you know, there's still a little bit of room to go lower always, because fear can just make things be dumb, the same way that there's always room to go up because people can be greedy. That being said, I do feel like we're in a situation where things might be a little oversold. I'm not a financial expert, you know, you shouldn't take investment advice from me. But I don't know, I don't understand how like some stocks have dropped 80% in value over the last 3 months, you know, and even beyond just the indexes dropping a little bit today, some stocks just got absolutely hammered. Like the tech sector in general, a lot of the more speculative options there had a horrible day. I'm talking down 12, 15, 20% in a single day, and those stocks are now, you know, reaching points where they're pretty far from their all-time high. I think as this Russia-Ukraine situation stabilizes, no matter what happens, either way, just it being stable will bring a lot of calmness to the market. And, you know, obviously, we hope Russia doesn't invade Ukraine. That's like the ideal situation. But I even think a lot of this fear right now is just the unknown. Even if Russia did invade Ukraine, at that point, we know what's going to happen. I think not knowing what the next few weeks are going to entail is what's just scaring everybody to like pull their money out as much as possible, and obviously options expiring usually makes the third Friday of every month a little crazy. DraftKings shares fall 20% on 2022 outlook. Listen, you know, I grew up in Las Vegas. I know a thing or two about gambling, and I can tell you that whenever the economy starts to not be popping, it tends to be that gambling is one of the first things people cut out of their budget. I remember in 2007, 2008, 2009, Vegas was like basically a ghost town of what it was before. We were one of the fastest growing cities in the country. 2008 happened, and suddenly, you know, there was a bunch of abandoned casinos on the strip. There's still one. If you want to look up something weird, look up the Fontainebleau Las Vegas. They built this entire casino and just left it because there wasn't enough money to finish it. So, when it comes time for the economy to kind of have a reset, I'm not surprised that gambling stocks are taking a giant hit, just because if people are going to have a lot less money, if things are costing more because of inflation, they don't have as much fun money sitting around, which, unless people are gambling addicts, is kind of what they're gambling with. I don't think many people are putting rent on the line and try to double it on the money line. At least I hope not. On top of that, Roku shares plunging 25%, which is on pace for their worst day ever. Obviously, it's a lot of the speculative plays just getting smacked. DraftKings, doesn't do well in a bad economy. It also is just a situation where it's not insanely profitable yet, just because they're still spending a lot on advertising and whatnot. I would throw Roku into the especially speculative field. Yeah, sure, it's trying to get involved in the streaming wars and be up there one day as a Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime type of deal. That being said, it might happen, true, and if that does happen, you'd make a lot of money, but it's a riskier play. So obviously, when things start to be uncertain and you don't know what's going to happen, money gets taken out of risk first. And listen, I don't think Roku's a garbage company. I don't think DraftKings is a garbage company. That being said, it's just the reality of the riskier the business model, the more likely you are to be affected when there's huge amounts of volatility. Roku is a very speculative play at this point. You can't really argue about that, especially when you're looking at the fact that every other streaming service has gotten mollywopped too. It makes sense that this might have a giant drop like this, especially on a day like today where everything's just falling off a cliff. On top of it, Palantir, another very speculative stock, dropped more than 15% after earnings. Obviously, volatility is not too great, adds to the uncertainty, but it's also been weird to watch earnings so far this year because it seems like companies are either popping or dropping massively. Earnings get dropped and it's either up 15% or down 15%. That seems to be the trend, You're slightly off on your guidance, woof, enjoy the roller coaster down, baby. What was it, Amazon, that when they announced their earnings shot up 20% after hours, Overall, I think speculative tech is pretty beat down. I don't know where this puts Palantir from its all-time high, but it's definitely insane how much these companies are getting beat up just because of how high-flying they've been the last few years. I think a lot of people didn't really realize how great of a stock market we were in until now that it's ending, and they're like, oh wow, this can get much, much worse, Yeah, stocks going up 17% averages a year is not normal, and especially when you start to introduce some unknown factors into the economy, it's not necessarily sustainable either. And we also are undercounting how much money the Fed's been printing, bro. This thing's all propped up because they just don't want to turn the money printer off. And also, Intel announced that they're going to be delaying their 2023 server chip, saying that they need to boost spending to catch up to competitors. Honestly, Intel's pretty down on this news. Once again, no financial expert. I feel like this is probably actually one of the better things they can do. Intel for a while was just the dominant computer chip. AMD has been bringing the heat recently though, and I think it's more important for them to get back to a relative position of being somewhat competitive in the processor market. Because listen, let's be honest, their last generation kind of flopped. AMD's didn't. They've been on a tear, and it's just a matter of time for technology companies to become obsolete unless you start making changes to catch up. And so I think delaying this by a year to simply get back on track when it comes to the main bread and butter of the business is probably a good idea in the grand scheme of things. I like Intel. It's the processor I had in my first computer, That being said, that was really the only choice at the time when I built my first computer because I'm getting old, and now there's a lot more options for processors, and especially with more and more semiconductor manufacturers saying they're going to be making CPUs, it's just going to get more and more competitive. So I think Intel, this is probably the time to spend on it and get your position a little more secure, because right now these smaller companies low-key are just going to take chunks out of you like a dead whale in the ocean, and there's some voracious bull sharks, baby. But yeah, overall today was a pretty rough day for the market. If you haven't taken a look at your account yet to see how much you're down, you might want to just avoid it. Check back Monday afternoon. It could be worse though, maybe you want to look now. Regardless, guys, I think that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to press the like button. Let me know in the comments section down below what you thought. And, of course, subscribe if you're new and turn on those notifications. I would really, really appreciate it. If you want to help me out more, a link to the intro songs down below, along with the link to my podcast, The Scuffed Cast. Or, of course, you could use code SCRUBBY at the G Fuel checkout. It's actually 30% off this weekend, so be sure to do that. And, yeah, 2 more links down in the description. Number 1 is a link to my Spotify Spotify show. Be sure to go give it a listen if you want to listen offline without gameplay, whatever floats your boat. And of course, we've got the merch, which is the coolest merch to ever exist. That link's going to be at the bottom of the description, but be sure to go get yourself some. Otherwise, I can't guarantee you'll be considered cool. And yeah, on that note, guys, that'll do it. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, go make sure they're hot, and I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.